Welcome to Second Chapter, Unforgettable Career Stories Podcast. I'm Karen Sharp-Price, and I'm so glad you're here. Back in 2020, I launched a podcast called SharpHR Career Corner. The goal was simple, to create a library of real conversations with people in all kinds of roles across industries sharing their career stories. Over 3 years, in 53 episodes, those stories became a reminder that there's no real single path to a meaningful career. Now I'm back with a new mini-series, Second Chapter. This is for those of you who love the original podcast and for those just finding us for the first time. Since COVID, I've noticed something powerful. So many people have paused, reflected, and realized that life is just too short to stay stuck in work that doesn't fit anymore. Second Chapter is about those moments, the pivots, the risks, the brave decisions to choose work that actually feels meaningful. These are real stories from real people who dared to change direction and start their next chapter. I hope you enjoy. I'm excited to welcome our very first guest to our new podcast. Please welcome Nicole Ewendorf. How are you doing, Nicole?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's been a while. We were talking just before, and I can't believe that it's actually been 3 years. How fast 3 years went by.
It really did.
Yeah. It is amazing. So I want to start by asking you, you spent over a decade producing and eventually leading newscasts, culminating as an executive producer. For listeners outside media, describe what that daily pressure was like and that pace of your role. And what does creative control of a newscast truly involve?
So I'm going to talk about it from the newsrooms that I worked in. I know, especially now, even though I've only been out for 3 years, a lot of things have changed.
Hmm.
As far as the pace go, I love the pace. I love a fast pace. It makes the day go by fast. Plus, the one thing I loved about news is you never knew what you're going to walk into. There was something new every day. So, you have your morning meeting, which is you meet with your reporters and other producers, and you talk about what the day looks like from what the stories that you know are happening, not breaking news or and then there's also an afternoon meeting for like the later crew. But you kind of go through the day and you pick what stories are going to go in which newscasts. And at the time, the 6 and the 11 were your big newscasts. So your big stories were going to really go in your 6 and your 11. And I was the 6 o'clock producer. So I got, I never had to look for a story because you could just, whatever was happening in the community was going to go in the 6 o'clock. So it was really easy to fill the newscast. The challenge was, how do you make it creative and for viewers to watch? Because you don't want to just put stories in a newscast and just go from story to story to story. Like, you need a setup and why you think this is important for the viewer, and why it should be in your 6 o'clock. And that is also like my news director would allow me to get creative with graphics. And my news director at the time was really big on sound, which I ended up being really big on sound because it's a visual medium, but people are doing other things, especially at 6 o'clock. You're making dinner, the kids are home. So, you really have to grab the viewer's attention. So if you have a really good sound bite, and somebody's just listening and they hear it and they're like, oh, I want to see this story. So, I think sound is really important and it isn't utilized enough. So it's going through, the different sound bites of the stories and is this going to be the bite that's going to grab the viewer? And having a news director be like, okay, start your newscast with that sound bite, and having that control to be, I want this sound bite to go with this graphic. Like, even if it's just a map, just something to get the viewer engaged.
But that time frame that you first, have a list of all the stories, and then you've got to work on each one to fit it in that half an hour, and then add the sound bites. That's got to be extreme pressure with timing. You don't have a lot of time to get that all put together in a nice, neat package.
You don't. And sometimes I would make sure I had some filler stories in there that were like lighter stories. So if we needed extra time, I could drop a story.
Oh, okay. Wow. And you're doing that every single night. Like you're not getting a lot of
Absolutely. And
breaks.
then
Yeah.
if you have breaking news, that just completely blows up your whole rundown because that then becomes your whole show.
Oh my gosh. So
But I loved it.
after years of like chasing those deadlines and managing those breaking stories in real time, what was the moment or period when you decided, you know what, I need a change?
I mean, I think after COVID, I think everybody was a little exhausted. And then on top of that, in 2022, we had the mass shooting at Tops,
Mm,
and then the funerals, and then 10 days later, there was Uvalde. It just got to a point where once the pandemic ended, I was kind of had one foot in, one foot out, kind of like, okay, I don't know how much longer I want to do this. And then when, May happened in 2022, I was kind of like, okay, you know, eh, they're hard stories, especially when you have them right in your backyard. It
right.
just became I was mentally drained by that point.
Yeah. I mean, on a normal day, week, month, year without COVID, you probably had ups and downs of stories and, some that would be pulling at your heartstrings, but then have a break of time where you didn't have such deep, strong stories. But with COVID and with the amount of illness and sickness and death, and then the shooting, and that, I mean, it was all just one big black cloud.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you could feel it in the newsroom, like the air in the newsroom during that period. It was tough. Like you could see everybody was kind of struggling to just get through the
Find
day.
yeah, find some glimmer of hope somewhere along the way just to breathe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as a career coach, what I was seeing from my side, I didn't even until we met, I didn't even think about your industry and how it was impacting it. I saw nurses, I saw teachers that were just burnt out because their whole life and their whole careers were just really changing at warp speed. Um, but I wasn't thinking about the people that were actually producing the information on a daily basis, day in and day out, day in and day out, because you were the front line of hearing the news, seeing it, and then trying to figure out how you were going to get that out across people. So that, yeah, I can see how that could mentally just break you down really over
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
So your transition was not a lateral move to like another media source, but a completely new industry as a legal assistant. So what were you seeking in the legal field that the news industry just no longer could provide you?
I thought doing a lot of when you do a lot of crime stories, you go on the court website, you find the complaint because you need to know the background, the information. And so a lot of the time, I was going through these complaints and I've always kind of loved the law. And I mean, unless you're a lawyer, lawyers obviously don't work 9 to 5, but paralegals, legal assistants, the hours are more normal. Like before, when I was an executive producer, I was going in at 2, 3 in the morning
Wow.
and not getting out until like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's an odd hour. So 9 to 5 really started to appeal to me. And the pace of it though, because you're in a law firm, it's always busy. You always have clients coming in. So the pace was still the pace that I liked. The information, the clients that come in with their stories is interesting. So it just seemed to me it was the next logical step.
A really good fit. Yeah. The law office and the newsroom, they operate obviously on very different kinds of deadlines and rules. How did you identify the legal assistant role as your ideal second chapter? How did you know that that was going to be the one? And then what specific steps did you take to sell a law firm on the idea that a journalist could really just kind of step in and move along with the firm?
Well, and this is why part of the reason why I reached out to you was because I wasn't sure how to make that transition, and the steps that you gave me to go through, like, this is what a legal assistant does. And the the homework that you gave me to investigate, and learn about it, definitely was what I needed to be like, okay, yes, this is definitely what I want to pursue next. And as far as selling my boss on trying to get me to hire me, I was a little bit lucky because he is on the media. He does, if for certain stories, he does do the news, so he deals with journalists. So I mean, he knows we're organized, our attention to detail, and that deadlines. I mean, even though the law deadlines aren't end of day, they still sneak up on you. So you need somebody that's going to be on top of that and know, when something's due. So that's the way I sold them.
Because I think a lot of people at that point in the very beginning, they see a mountain in front of them. They're like, I don't
Yes.
like what I'm doing now, but, and I don't really think I can stay with what I'm doing, but I don't even know where to begin. But as you go through the steps, it might be kind of smoky in the beginning, but I feel as though there's a time when the the cloudiness starts to clear up. And I don't know because I didn't have to do it personally, but I think for the person that's making the change, it just all of a sudden becomes clearer and clearer as you go through the steps to figure out, yes, I'm on the right path. And do you think you gain clarity and confidence by doing that?
Oh yes, because I mean, I knew that some of the skills that I've had being a producer would transfer over to being able to become a legal assistant, but I didn't realize how much transferred over.
Mm.
Like, I was like, okay, I'm organized. I can keep, you can keep a calendar and keep, but I mean, it's all the other little things that you don't really think of that you do day to day, that the steps you like, I'm like, oh yeah, I do this. And this would be great in this position. But until you go through the steps and you really look at what you do and what you're looking for, you don't really make at least I didn't make the connection.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't, at least from, from that moment where they know they're unhappy, but they don't know where they're going to go. They can't imagine that there's anything that's going to be a clear cut path. And everybody's different, but for you, um, it was, I have to say, it sort of opened up, I thought, very quickly for you.
Yeah.
Like once you started getting going and started looking into things, it seemed like it really worked a lot quicker than, what I see a lot of other people go through. The news production is, about speed and getting the story out now. Legal work can often be sometimes slow and meticulous. And how, like what was the biggest mental or psychological adjustment that you had to make in your day-to-day work style? Because there is a difference there.
There is a big difference. It's definitely, I mean, I'm always busy, but it is a slower, like, you work on different cases throughout the day. It's not just, just one and seeing it all the way through. You gotta, you deal with different things, and it's, again, the deadlines are different. The biggest challenge for me is when you're in TV, when you're writing scripts, you write as you talk, right? Because you're, as a viewer, you're talking to the viewer, you're having a conversation. It's kind of the opposite in when you're in a law firm, the legal work, because a lot of it's Latin based. There's a lot of bigger words. There's different words. So for 10 years, I rewrote those to make it, more conversational. So now I'm in the reverse. Like, nope, nope, you got to use the bigger word here. You leave the bigger word, and then everything's very formal. So it's like letters. And I was like, I don't remember the last time that I wrote a letter, with the body and everything. So that was definitely a learning curve for me.
Did you have training or did you kind of just jump in?
I just kind of jumped in. I mean, they're I mean, after a while, you remember. I'm like, okay, this is how you write a letter, and these, and then there's templates too. So if you're working on some sort of document and you don't know where to go, I mean, I'm lucky too. A lot of the other legal assistants, they're just great. So if I ever had any questions, I mean, they were right there to help me through it.
That's
But
good.
I mean, there's templates, so you can, and it kind of walks you through it. So I mean, it took a little while, but after a while, I mean, it's you catch on.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, though. I mean, you really did flip it.
I did.
Yeah, you did. In the newsroom, you train new producers and on script writing and that. Do you find that teaching or mentoring those skill sets are still useful in your new environment, or are you too new at this point to jump into that side?
I'm starting to. There's a few newer legal assistants who are starting to come to me and asking me, like, how do I do this? How does this work? So it's starting to turn around where I'm, instead of asking for help, I'm being the one asked for help. So it wasn't like that in the beginning, definitely, but it's definitely, it's starting to become that way.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. After I, and again, I can't believe it's been 3 years, but after 3 years in the legal field, was this massive, career change, was it worth it in your mind?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really needed it.
If you could whisper one piece of advice to your younger self, as the executive producer, what do you think it would be?
It's okay to say no.
Hmm.
I never I just loved it so much, and I loved being a part of that, that even if I wasn't working and there was breaking news, like, sometimes I would just go to work because I just knew it's always hands on deck, and I would just go in and help out. I mean, even if it
Wow.
wasn't on a script, even if it was just, like, logging sound bites, like, there's always something to do, and I just wanted to help out, and I think that contributed to my burnout, just
Yeah.
because I always wanted to help, I always wanted. It's okay to say no. You don't wanna come in, you can't come in. This story, it hits a little too close to home to me. I don't know if I can work on it. Like, I never did that. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna
Mm.
find a way to get through this." It's okay to say
Wow.
no.
Do you feel that this transition allowed you to have more boundaries for yourself?
Yes.
That's good. For a professional who, feels that their career has become synonymous with high stress, I mean, there's a lot of positions out there that have the high stress, the extreme hours. Um, what do you think is the best first step that they can take to pivot into an equally professional, but perhaps maybe more controlled work environment? So, almost what would you have said to yourself when you were at that kind of sticking point where you didn't, you realized at the moment that you didn't want to do this any longer, but then you didn't really have a plan B yet as to what you should do next? Um, what do you think would be the best first step for somebody?
I mean, I think, and especially for me, like I said, after the pandemic, I had one foot in, one foot out. You have to make sure that you are okay with walking away. Like,
Mm,
this is what I went to school for. Like, I didn't think at the time that I'd ever not want to be a producer. So I had to make sure that when I walked away, I mean, I was walking away, and I needed to make sure that I was okay with that. And once I did that, I was kind of like, I don't know what the next step is. Like, I don't want to go back to school. I mean, so I think, so that's when I started looking online, and it was like career coaches. So I think if you are definitely ready to move on and you're not sure where to go, like, a career coach is a great place to start, because you gave me the tools to go through and be like, okay, you can do this. You can do this. Like, it's a lot easier to make a transition when you have some help than
yeah.
when you're trying to do it by yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree not only for that purpose, but really anything in life, like having that extra person to kind of bounce things off of. Um, how how did you know though? Because you said you had to know for yourself that you could walk away. How what does that look like? How do you know that for sure?
When you don't love it. I mean, I loved being a producer. And when you get up in the morning and you're like, I have to go to work. And you have that feeling. And then, as being in news, you have like the push alerts, like the CNN push alerts, because you need to know what's going on around the world, around the nation. When I'd get the dings, I'd be like, I really don't want to click on this because I don't really want to know what's going on. When you get to that point
Yeah.
and you're like, I mean, it's time to walk away.
So one last question about that. Because it was fast paced, because information was, being thrown at you all the time. You were obviously, mentally and maybe even physically burnt out at the time. How did you find enough time in that crazy schedule to find time to look somewhere else?
When you really, really are ready to move on, you make the time. When you really want to change, you find the time to, because if
That's
you
the
don't,
thing.
then you're just stuck in the same cycle.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point because there's a lot of people who have been kind of on the fence for a while and they're not happy and they know they're not happy, but they're scared of, the unknown. You just can't do it anymore. I think is really, that's kind of the breaking point for you. And finding time, that is generally one of the excuses people make. Well, I just don't have time. but
Right.
but I think that's kind of their safety net. That if they
Yes.
keep saying that, then they don't have to push themselves over. And it's very difficult. I mean, it's not easy to get to that point. But then once you do, I personally think that momentum starts. I love your story. I use your story multiple times to other people when I talk about it, um, because you did it all really the right way. You really did, and you were focused. You were committed, and you were sure that you were going to make a change. And with all those things in place, it was only going to work for you. So I thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I really do. I know that I love, how you've pivoted into something that you love to do, and I'm sure that other people are going to relate. And things that you've said today are going to be very relatable to where they are right now. And I'm hoping that they, find the courage to just take that first step. So thank you very much. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
your
having
time.
me. And I hope, if somebody is really wants to make a change, you can do it. If you really want to and you really need to, you can do it. And it's scary,
Yeah.
but once you start get going, you get excited again.
Yeah.
And it helps.
The momentum really does happen. It's interesting because in the beginning you were saying how you went to school for this, you thought this was going to be your life. Um, Students coming out of college these days, it is projected that they will probably change their careers, not their jobs, but their careers 3, 4, 5, or more times in their lifetime. So, what you just did, people are going to be doing multiple times. And so, you kind of have to be adaptable,
Yes,
and keep your eyes open for new opportunities that are coming around the corner. Um, Never just say no to opportunities. Wait and see how they kind of play out. But
absolutely.
I love your story, and I thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you for spending this time with us. If today's story sparked something for you, know this: your second chapter doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. So until next time, let's be kind to everyone, to ourselves, and to others. And it starts with you and I. Have a great day.